Hello, I'm Rex Anderson. Who are you? More importantly, what makes you, you? Consider how our history constructs us as we construct it. A sliver of who I am stems from a sawmill, Anderson Sawmill, with roots tying it back to Sweden in the 1800s. This will not be a typical look at history, but more of a commentary and contemplation. Get ready, because you're about to take a sudden trip back to the past. Obituary, January 13, 1916. Anders Gustaf Olsson was born March 22, 1826 in Sweden. He married Miss Anna Christina Johnson in the year 1859. They had 10 children, 2 of which were born in this country, 2 died in Sweden, and a son passed away in Arizona about 6 years ago. Mr. Olsson worked at different trades, mostly in the line of mechanics. The family moved to America in the year 1880 and lived in Colby for some time. He worked on the railroad a while and then settled down in Romeo, where he lived ever since. His wife died in February 1911. 2 years ago, Mr. Olsson moved to his daughter's Mrs. Helston home, where he passed away Thursday morning, January 13, aged 89 years, 9 months, 21 days. He leaves 7 children, 23 grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and many friends to mourn his loss. He was not confined to his bed for any length of time. The day before his death, he was up part of the time. Considering his great age, he was unusually strong and vigorous. His mind and memory was clear as his younger days, and he conversed not only about the past, but also about the present. Funeral services were held at the Swedish Lutheran Church Sunday afternoon and were largely attended by large concourse of sorrowing friends and relatives. Reverend Norman of Grand Rapids officiating. How quickly the years fly by, and those who came before us are forgotten. Their struggles, their hardships. What was their plight in this world? Here's my grandfather, Maurice. What hardships did he face in life? How much of a struggle was it for him as he and a crew set up and cut their lumber, went home to their families here in Spencer, and you can see where the school was, and he lived right next door, and even where the football field and parking lot is. That's at one time where the sawmill was set up. Back then they used horses to pull the logs and a 2-man chainsaw. What were their long days like? How did they feel when they went home to their family? And they didn't have the internet. They had each other. They had the hard work. There's my grandfather and my dad. I wonder what days were like then. As the loud ring of that saw without earplugs. Did they wear safety glasses? Look at my dad there. That was the kind of safety practices he passed down to our generation. And here we see the modern equipment as they cut down the trees, the upgraded skidders. They could pull multiple logs and move them around with various pieces of equipment and pull the trees right into the gigantic chipper. Whole tree chipper. It sucks them in, spits them out as chips. Here's the sawmill that I grew up in that I remember. The boards would come out on that rotating table and we would pile them. The trucks, the Peterbilts, and before that was the Kenworth. Before that, the various trucks that they had back then. It's funny how you have to take a picture of the truck. But the people are really what was important. Brings us up to a more modern era with the current mill that's there. Here you see the front of the building as I worked there for 20 years. Over 20 years. Debarking the logs, a job I've spent many, many hours at. Not that much different than any other profession or homemaker. We all put our hands and our time toward some efforts. It was fun to open up a log and see the beautiful grain inside. I enjoyed the strategy of determining the best possible way to saw the log to get the greatest value. Look on a current map and you'll find Anderson Sawmill on Highway 153, northeast of Spencer. Wayne directly next door. I grew up there, and this is where I currently live, in an old farmhouse on River Avenue. It's almost mind-boggling to think that Andersons have owned sawmills and sawed lumber in a radius of about 10 miles for over 100 years. Maybe take a moment and ask yourself, what do you remember about the generations that came before you? When I look back at my dad, and there's a senior picture there, and my Uncle Wayne when they were young men, I look at Wayne and such an industrious, hard-working go-getter. My dad, a foreman, good boss, remembered for how he wore his pants very low in the back. They knew how to keep employees for a long time. And when you have a sawmill and it's hard work, long hours, repetitive work, to hold on to a crew for the amount of years that they did showed that they knew how to deal with people kindly and fairly. Here's the Anderson family at a recent reunion. The siblings, 7 brothers and 2 sisters, each generation being remembered by the one before. How will future generations remember you? History is not merely dates and places, but it's people and how we each touch each other's lives. I look back in the past with gratitude, and I look forward to the future, trusting in God, grateful to Him for all the many blessings He's poured out on me. It may be wise to take a moment of nostalgia and look at your history, lest you fall victim to the more common malady of amnesia.